I believe in wrong and right, in and out, loose and tight. I believe in black and white, up and down and dull and bright. Ek glo in die
Yeah, that was a beautiful poem called I Believe, performed by our fallen colleague, Sunna Fenta. We remember her today. Very good morning to you, Elvis. It's a somber day at the SABC today.
Somber day, and our condolences to the Fenta family, and of course all our colleagues here at the SABC, RSG, the radio station downstairs. They are grieving this morning.
Yeah, no, I saw one of the SABC 8 a little earlier this morning, and very unhappy faces all around.
Absolutely. So we're asking you, how do you remember SABC 8 journalist Sunna Fenta? Of course, we remember her as passionate about children and a fearless journalist in the face of much provocation and intimidation. How do you remember our fallen colleague? She was found dead in a flat here in Johannesburg yesterday.
Let's take a look at some of your comments that you are sending us. Augustine Noto says, as a lady with loads of integrity and real journalist. That's how he will remember her.
Elsa Diedrich says, never met her in person, but always thought, wow, what an amazing journalist.
Unuka Christian said, she was a core and erudite journalist. Rest in peace, my darling. Yes, rest in peace, Sunna.
Rest in peace, Hambagatle, rust and vrede, Sunna Fenta. Rest in peace.
But the show goes on, as it always does, and of course it's the policy conference. It is the ANC that comes into sharp focus over the next week or so, and we are asking a poll today with regards to the 6-day National Policy Conference, and unity, I think, is going to be the buzzword for the next week.
That's the buzzword. Already divergent views. The ANC veterans, of course, has pulled out for the first 2 days of that particular conference, and that's why we're posing this question, Kendall.
Can this policy conference unify the ANC is what we want to find out from you. 154 votes in.
Doesn't look good, does it? More than 3/4 say no, it can't. It's not going to happen. Despite all the pronouncement we see from our leaders of us, what are our viewers saying?
Michael Big M says, yes, it will, even though we have informants in the party disguised as members. The ANC has survived worse.
Interesting from Michael there.
Malibongo says, yes, it will unify the ANC. After the 2012 conference, no one knew that the ANC would unite again.
This one from Tsitsaba says to us, no, the ANC is die at this time.
Dying at this time, yes. These are some of your views coming through to us. You can keep them coming. We'll read them as we continue. But we also have a sports question today, gentlemen.
Yeah, as we do. The international season kind of takes a little bit of a break now, and we're going to finish up the Super Rugby season. There's lots to talk about. The question we ask, I think everyone is going to say no.
No, I think a lot of people who've been looking at the Lions and how they've been going the last few years, especially this year as well, they would say probably. Because we want to find out from you, will a South African team win the Super Rugby title this year?
Well, the Crusaders are looming large in the path of
anybody and everybody.
The Lions. I think they played in the quarters actually, and this one from Nazim, he says yes, they can do if you look at their performances.
Well, as you know, that the Cheetahs obviously is also propping up their team. They've got about 3 or 4 of the 7 players in that team, so it's going to be good. Siafana says it's going to be difficult, but I wish they win it.
It's never going to be easy. Michael Big M's Tole weighs in on this one as well, says, yes, I think there's a 51% chance of that happening. And if only the Golden Lions go one step further this year.
Absolutely. One step further is where they have to go. It's time for us now to take a look at our top stories.
President Jacob Zuma is expected to address the African National Congress policy breakfast this morning. Murder accused Sandile Mantsoe is expected to appear in court as judgment on his bail application is made this morning. And tributes are pouring in for the late SABC radio journalist Sunna, who was part of the SABC 8. Now those are all your headlines, but before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening on the sports front.
Elvis, thank you very much. Eben mentioned it a little earlier. We're going back into Super Rugby. Lots to look forward to over the weekend. And we're all hoping the Lions do go that one step further.
Yeah, we do certainly hope so. If they can hear me over this racket that's going on in the studio, we'll try and fix it. But yeah, high hopes, but it's going to be tough, no doubt.
Yeah, no, we'll see what happens. It's starting up tomorrow night when the Lions go up against the Sunwolves. Good morning to you. This is what we have for you in the sports today.
Number one, because I believe that there are few leaders in the team, but it's a big honor and one that I'll take in my stride.
South Africa will open its COSAFA Cup account on Sunday against Tanzania after the East Africans get held to a 1-0 draw by Mauritius, but still get to top Group A.
Grant, Emre Can, Yunus, he's done it now. Yet another of the youthful brigade on the scoreboard for Germany, who lead 4-1.
Germany sends an ominous warning for next year's World Cup as its B team crushes Mexico by 4-1 to march on to the FIFA Confederations Cup final. This against Chile.
It's a fine line. If you rest him this week, then you don't play next week, then suddenly he's going to play his first game only in 3 weeks' time, and then you can almost cost the player his momentum.
As Super Rugby resumes after a long international test break, Lions coach Johan Ackerman wants to regain momentum as soon as possible and selects a full-strength side to play the Sunwolves. All this and more we've got for you later on the Sports Bulletin. Now, should we get to that, as you all know, we've got the ANC National Policy Conference on today. But for now, it's back to Elvis, who's got the news.
Thank you, Kendall. Top story this morning. Murder accused Sandile Mantsoe is expected to appear at the Johannesburg Magistrates Court today for a bail judgment. Mantsoe is accused of killing and burning his girlfriend Karabo Mokoena and then dumping her body in a veld in Lyndhurst. Mantsoe will find out whether his trial will continue with him behind bars or not. At the same time, the court is also expected to hear arguments on another matter in the Mantsoe bail application. Last month, the court ruled that the media may only report on the bail verdict and not the arguments, as sensitive information would be divulged. Karabo Mokwena's alleged killer has denied confessing to the police that he murdered the young woman in a ritual killing in order to save his failing business. Now, for the latest on the murder accused Sandile Mantsoe, who was accused of killing and burning his girlfriend Karabo, we are joined by our SABC reporter Manqoba Mqunu, who's outside the Johannesburg Magistrates Court. Manqoba, very good morning to you. What can we expect from the court today?
Well, certainly we are expecting that the magistrate will hand down that judgment in a few minutes from now. And as you'll know, as you'll recall, that it's been a very long bail hearing that we've had here in court, as it took almost 2 weeks. And you recall that both the defense and the state have both given their arguments as to why Sandile Mantsoe should either be released on bail or should be denied bail. And obviously we heard here for the first time the version of events according to the state and according to what Sandile Mantsoe himself says happened on the day when Karabo died. And what he said basically is that he had been with Karabo on that day in his house, and they'd spent the whole day in his house, and he said that he only left at about 4 p.m. in the afternoon to go and attend to a meeting. And he says that when he came back to the house, he came back to find Karabo dead on the floor. And he said that he panicked after seeing her because he was already being portrayed as an abusive partner. And he says that after seeing her like that on the floor, he then panicked. He says he doesn't know how she died, but he thinks that she committed suicide, saying that she had tried several times to end her life, and therefore he believes that she succeeded this time around to end her own life. He says then after that, after panicking, he then decided to try and conceal this death. He then loaded her body into a dustbin and into his car, and then he took it to a veld in Lyndhurst, where he then burnt it. As we'll know the details of that body being found in April, at the end of April, by the police and confirming later that it was indeed that of Karabo Mokoena. But of course the state is saying that a different version of events to what Sandile Mantsoe is saying. They're saying that, you know, he had a motive to kill Karabo, saying that indeed there was some sort of a bizarre motive that they've provided. In fact, to say that there was some sort of a muti ritual that was done by the couple to try and seal their bond, as well as to make sure that Sandile Mantsoe's businesses as a forex trader succeed. And therefore, when they broke up after that alleged assault, which happened a month before, his businesses started to crumble, and therefore he had to kill Karabo as a sacrifice to ensure that his businesses again boom and they become successful. And therefore, that is what the police say he confessed to. But of course, they're saying that so there is indeed a motive for Sandile Mantsoe to be to face that murder charge, and saying that they simply believe that he's a cold-blooded killer and that he planned to kill Karabo and conceal her body. And then, of course, we know that also the state is saying that he should not be given bail, saying that he faces a serious charge of Schedule 6, which is premeditated murder for killing Karabo Mokoena. They say that he did plan this murder and then carried it out, and therefore he should not be given bail. But of course, Mantsoe saying that it's still early days. He says that he believes that the state's case is weak against him, and therefore he should be given bail. But you'll know that, of course, in a Schedule 6 bail hearing, the applicant or the accused will have to provide exceptional circumstances to the court as to why they should be released on bail. And therefore, it stands to be seen whether Sandile Mantsoe indeed did have those compelling reasons that he did give to the court to be released on bail.
Just at what time, Ngobo, will the case kick off?
Well, we're expecting it to start at about 10 o'clock this morning, but of course it won't be a long judgment, as we will know that it's simply a bail hearing. So we are going to find out more or less in about 11 o'clock as to whether Sandile Mantsoe has been granted bail or not by the court.
Thank you so much. That was SABC's Mangoba Mkunu joining us from the Johannesburg Magistrates Court. Staying in the courts, the Ahmed Timol inquest will wrap up today at the High Court in Johannesburg, with a final witness expected. The judge has issued subpoenas for the surviving police officers who were involved in the 1971 interrogation and torture of both Timol and Salim Isop. But it's not clear if they will testify. Timol died while in the custody of the apartheid security police, with an inquest at the time finding it was suicide. His brother, Mohammed, told the court yesterday that he'd been interrogated at the same time as Ahmed's death.
Assaulted and killed in detention. It's believed Ahmed Timol was made to plunge to his death from the 10th floor at the then John Foster Square. His death was ruled as suicide by a 1972 inquest. A ruling again challenged by another witness, Timol's fellow inmate, Professor Kantilal Naik. He also endured systematic torture.
Look, they had actually tied my hands like this and put the thing over the knees, and then they put a broomstick in between where, you know, you could actually put the broomstick in such a way that, you know, you're hanging, and they started rotating.
Referring to Timol's death, Naik believes police security easily got away with murder, a sentiment shared by Timol's younger brother.
The inquest finding was Ahmed had committed suicide, which as a family we never accepted, our community didn't accept.
Timol died a week before his birthday. Another former detainee is expected to testify on Friday. SABC News, Johannesburg.
Some more sad news here at the SABC. SABC's field camera person, Mbalo, has passed away after a short illness at the age of 43. Mbalo started working at the broadcaster in 2004. She's filmed high-profile stories, including the court case of Oscar Pistorius and the Maracana killing. She's survived by her 2 children. The SABC's interim board has paid tribute to senior SABC radio news producer Sunna Fenta. 33-year-old Fenta was found dead in her flat in Johannesburg yesterday. The interim board said she stood up for good journalism when it was being subverted at the SABC. Fenta was one of the so-called SABC 8 who were suspended after they voiced their concerns about unlawful interference in the newsrooms and illegal editorial policies. She had recently been diagnosed with a cardiac condition associated with stress and trauma. Once again, to all our colleagues, our sincere condolences to everyone. But right now, let's start off our day, and of course we start off with a poll. Let's go over to Eben.
Yes, Elvis, we're talking about unity. Of course, the next couple of days we'll deal with unity and discussions around, well, ANC policy. Let's just have a look. Let's just have a look at where you guys are with regards to the poll. Can this policy conference unify the ANC? That's what we are asking you. You guys are voting. 175 votes are in. Well, more than 3/4 are saying no. It's not going to happen. It's not possible. Can't unify. Too much water under the bridge. Well, we're going to be talking about this and other matters over the next well, hour or so until we go there live. We're expecting President Jacob Zuma, of course, to open it this morning. He says the ANC will emerge much stronger from its 6-day national policy conference. He was delivering the keynote address at the party's fundraising gala dinner last night. This is ahead of the start of the conference this morning. But the party goes into it well divided, with veterans boycotting the first 2 days of the event, which were meant to discuss the health of the ANC. While the party says it will go ahead, the veterans say it will be a futile exercise.
It will be a battle for the survival of the ANC, with organizational challenges top of the agenda. The president believes solutions will emerge from the ANC's policy conference.
We are all also aware of the internal organizational challenges facing our movement. We are determined to attend to these, as we have always done so in the history of the ANC. We have set aside 2 days to focus on organizational renewal. South Africa needs a strong, united, and focused ANC.
And a clarion call to delegates.
While the ANC has sound policies, we must use the policy conference to find mechanisms to accelerate their effective implementation. That will be our main focus, to say, how do we effectively implement our good policies?
This conference is billed as important as it comes at a time when the party grapples with a massive drop in support. While the ANC leadership has called on delegates to emerge much stronger and unified, some believe this conference will be used as a proxy in the succession battle.
What we'll see now is various factions in this policy conference putting in, testing how warm is the water is in their favor. That's the unfortunate part. So what we're going to see in this policy conference is a factional testing of their strength towards having their political candidate winning in 2017 December.
Griselda Lewis, SABC News at Nasrec in Johannesburg.
Of course, the ANC has vowed to use this conference to deal with these internal challenges. President Jacob Zuma, as I said earlier, is expected to address the policy breakfast any moment from now on. Earlier, he said they've set aside the first 2 days of the conference to discuss the challenges that have rocked the governing party. President Zuma said this when addressing hundreds of business people who attended the ANC's fundraising gala dinner last night. But let's go there now. Let's go there live. Griselda's there. She's with Lakanya. Very good morning to you guys. Griselda, before you guys carry on, look, can you just set the scene for us there this morning?
Eben, good morning. Well, nice day in Johannesburg this morning. I think it's a little bit better than my home, Cape Town. But anyway, we're broadcasting to you from Nasrec. This is, of course, where we will be for the next 6 days or so for the ANC's, the National Policy Conference. This is where the ANC basically decides what kind of movement, maybe even potentially what kind of government it would like to be post the 2019 elections, should the party, of course, win those elections. You know, for the next couple of days, they will set their policies aside. They will discuss those. They will throw out some that haven't worked over the last couple of years, maybe then introduce new ones in the process of organizational renewal, as we've been hearing for the last couple of days. Eben, but as you correctly pointed out, I'm not alone. Over the next couple of days, I'll be working with the very hard-working, very beautiful Criselda Lewis, Eldrin Sampier, who was already very busy this morning. And the three of us will hopefully bring you and the rest of the country everything that happens here, all the discussions, at least those that we'll be privy to, as well as analysis, views, everything that relates to the ANC's National Policy Conference. Criselda was out working very late last night. She covered the dinner. I'd just like to bring her in here just to say good morning to everybody and to tell me just, Criselda, good morning firstly. Last night, what were some of the key issues that were discussed at the gala dinner?
Well, we didn't expect President Jacob Zuma to say much or to give away much, but we did note, quite pertinently that he would call for the ANC and delegates to emerge from this conference much stronger and united. You know that one of the major issues for the ANC in the run-up to this policy conference and for the next couple of days would be to address the issue of organizational renewal and the many challenges that the country, the economy and the African National Congress as the governing party is facing. So what the ANC would need to do, emanating from President Jacob Zuma setting the scene last night, talking about the economy, calling on everyone to work together to resuscitate this economy, which is in this technical recession, as you earlier pointed out, and how you're going to deal with the relevant issues of today that are facing the country as well as the economy. If you look at massive unemployment, if you look at rapid growth, if you look at a staggering inequality in South Africa, those are some of the pressing issues that the ANC would need to deal with. And that's certainly what President Jacob Zuma did mention in his address last night. We're not expecting the address when he does the official opening this morning to be any different, where he will urge the ANC to set an example, because in as much as this is the policy conference and we're looking to what the ANC will decide and how it plans to restore that confidence in ordinary South Africans with policies that will work for them, the ANC also needs to emerge from this much stronger and have that desired confidence, so that in the run-up to its elective conference, which is just a stone's throw away, we know as well that the leadership battles of the ANC will also feature quite prominently here.
Right, Criselda, thank you very much. I know that we're standing by with Professor Letana, and that, I'd like to now hand over the microphone to you to conduct that interview, and that you and I will then chat a little bit later.
Well, thank you very much to our parliamentary whiz there, Lukhanyo Qalata, joining us all the way from Cape Town for the special broadcast. Let's bring you in now, Prof. Ndletyana. Quite important couple of days for the African National Congress to come up with policies that will change the lives of ordinary South Africans. Well, the ANC cannot be accused of not having pro-poor policies, but implementation seems to be key.
Well, implementation, and I think everyone knows what the problem is. And the ANC is quite good at looking at issues that it needs to do. The main challenge is, how do you act on those policies? The major issue now is unemployment, right? You have, 28% or so. How do you do that? And added to that is an issue of leadership crisis. You have people who are supposed to lead South Africa into a new trajectory, who are themselves accused of all sorts of things. So you have a twin problem, really. How do you move the economy from where it is now, and who do you entrust with that responsibility? Because you need to have some confidence that those who are leading our society are very ethical, they are clean, that they speak with the same tongue, they that message is clear and directive to everyone. But lately, the ANC has been inwardly focused. You don't have a clear sense of policy direction. They don't seem to agree exactly what they mean by radical economic transformation. So you have a mixture of messages that is coming through. And for a country where we are now, you don't really need that kind of leadership. So it's a very serious moment. It's a decisive moment. You're not only talking about the ANC conference in December, but you're also talking about electability in 2019. If the ANC doesn't change, if it doesn't come out of here talking seriously about moral issues, about fighting corruption, about integrity, then quite likely it will drop below 50 in 2019.
How likely is that when the ANC itself, I mean, the next 2 days will solely be focused on organizational renewal, where the ANC itself will dissect and look at itself because of the challenges that it is facing? How possible is it to achieve that, or perhaps focus on what needs to come out of these policies, yet you've got a crisis from within the governing party itself?
You see, you have a schism in the sense that the ANC is divided into a reform-minded faction and a patron faction. If you have to reform the ANC, then you have to get rid of all the corrupt and dirty elements within. You have to institute a commission of inquiry into the capture report, a state of capture report. But that report implicates a number of ANC members who the so-called patron faction. So they know that a clean ANC, an ethical ANC, represent a threat to them. So they would rather continue with someone as compromised as Jacob Zuma, and Jacob Zuma is determined to influence succession so that if that commission is instituted, it comes up with all sorts of findings, then there is someone in 2018 to protect it, right? So the stakes are quite high. You have people who are bent on self-preservation. For them, it's a matter of life and death to protect themselves. But we have others who say for the ANC to remain viable, it must be electable. It might speak to common sense issues of morality, ethics, right? Just doing the right things instead of pilfering state money when there's so much need out there.
We've seen the ANC also say that, it's all good and well to come up with those good policies, but if you have a weak ANC, that certainly does not fare in the right direction. How do we see all of this playing out in the policy conference? You spoke about the factionalism, and perhaps what we might see in this policy conference is basically who supports who by the kinds of policies that we see being pushed forward. Who supports Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma and who supports the Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa?
This is an ample opportunity for the various lobbies within the ANC. It's a national gathering. So they will try to lobby and influence each other. So they are preparing, really. In as much as they are talking on policy issues, they are also preparing for the elective conference in December. So the kind of message that will come out of here dominant will pretty much indicate dominant sentiment within the branches. So you will see, for Cyril Ramaphosa, it's a tricky thing because even though they are for reforms, good government, at the same time they can't be seen to be against radical economic transformation because then that plays into this argument that Cyril is pro-capita. So even though everyone thinks that radical economic transformation issue is a populist issue, chauvinistic issue. At the same time, you have to critique it in a way that shows that you are also pro-transformation because South Africa remains a highly unequal society and these inequalities are patterned along racial lines. So there are serious objectives or challenges that the ANC still has to deal with.
The provinces also play quite a critical role in this, and judging from some of the resolutions that they've came out from with the provincial dissecting of these policy documents. For example, you've got Gauteng saying that the word white monopoly capital does not exist in their vocabulary, yet you have the mother body itself say that white monopoly capital remains a threat. How would we see all of this play out when you've got the various provinces coming up with their own resolutions and, of course, wanting this particular policy conference to have their say on issues which are clearly they don't seem to agree on, that amongst many others?
Well, I think ANC members wish for a whole number of things. But if you talk ANC policy, then you must go to ANC documents. Monopoly capital is a problem. Because of history of colonialism, obviously we've had white dominance. So in as much as the ANC is an African nationalist movement that seeks to restore ownership to Africans and the rest, at the same time, it's not a nationalist chauvinist movement. It remains a universal nationalist movement that embraces non-racialism. So non-racialism, this is a way of saying humanity is the same throughout the world, right? No one is inferior or superior over the other. So we can't compromise those principles just because of convenience, because we want to get certain things. So they will have to go back to the basics, Strategy and Tactics 1969, and subsequent Strategy and Tactics documents that say South Africa is a non-racial society. Yes, we have to deal with inequalities. We have to put primacy on Africans because they are the primary victims of colonialism. But at the same time, whites, South Africa belongs to everyone who live in it. You know, also, South Africa has a global open economy. It would be very stupid to talk anti-white and at the same time wish that you will attract investment. Look at Zimbabwe. You know, I mean, this is common sense. This is not some mysterious argument. You have to have common sense issues. You have to be strong on equity. You have to be strong on redress. At the same time, be open. I think business is open to doing business in South Africa as long as they are clear on what is happening and that they feel that there is money to be made, right? There is no need really to be stupid. You know, and so talking chauvinist politics, anti-white rhetoric doesn't help anyone. At the end of the day, you have a country to run. Slogans don't feed people. Countries grow on the basis of rational, sane policies that everyone else agrees with. So there's no need for the ANC to surrender to stupidity because from there you are going into a slippery slope.
All right, Prof, we'll certainly engage with you much later in the day. Of course, Professor Mcebisi Ndletyana, who is just giving us some insight, certainly something you'll see here on SABC News. Let me bring in my colleague, Lukhanyo Calata, as well. Lukhanyo, I think quite important as well, you know, if you look at Parliament and some of, you know, the decisions that have been taken in the run-up to this policy conference. How do you speak to that and perhaps, you know, what the ANC needs to decide over the next couple of days?
Griselda, I think what gets discussed and decided here, should the ANC win in 2019, that then becomes government policy because the ANC becomes the ruling party. So I think we need to be very careful and watch almost every policy decision, every policy discussion. We need to, we had hoped that the ANC would open it up just so that we could at least report and be part of those, just to report on as well. But we need to watch and interrogate each and every policy that is discussed, because should the ANC win, because what gets discussed here then forms the basis of the ANC's manifesto, what they present to the people. Should they then win there, that then becomes government policy. So this is very crucial for the party, and hopefully it will then use this to springboard itself towards the next 10, 15, 20 years. And I think it will come to Parliament, maybe in the form of bills and those kinds of issues. So we'll definitely be keeping an eye out for those kinds of issues. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Lukhanyo Calata, and I will be here just at the Nasrec Expo Centre here in the south of Johannesburg. Of course, that's where the ANC's National Policy Conference kicks off today. We're still expecting President Jacob Zuma to arrive here and to officially open it in the next few minutes. But back to you in studio for now.
Yeah, thank you very much to Griselda Lewis. Griselda and Lukhanyo, they'll be on the spot there, right in the mix for the next couple of days. It's going to be a tough job. We'll bring you all the very best from the policy conference, of course. Despite all the talk, at the end of it all, there's one small word: unity. Unity. The ANC more divided now than ever. What do you guys think? Can this policy conference unify the ANC? That's what we're talking to you about. 190 votes. 78% say no. Nope, it can't. Wow. That'll be interesting to see how this develops. Kabi Suntuli says just never. This Congress will open more fractions in between the ANC. Of course, the veterans are a no-show there for the first couple of days. Siafana tells us, no, it's not easy. It's never easy. Nazim says the ANC will never be united until they punish some of the leaders who think they are above it. Interesting one there from Onati Nazim tweeting us. Of course, we've got lots and lots to discuss and lots to deal with. A little bit later, we've got an interview for you with Jesse Duarte. But before we go there, let's go to Arvis, who's got some interesting views.
Thank you, Eben. Now, as you know, the ANC's 5th Policy Conference will start today at Newsroom in Johannesburg. We'll go there live a little bit later. That Policy Conference will be a 6-day event. The ANC has dedicated 2 days to discuss its ailing state in terms of the decline in electoral support, which is expected to continue well into the 2019 general elections. The Policy Conference can only make policy proposals that will be ratified at the December conference, when new leaders will be elected. The ANC says it wants to come out of the Policy Conference united. Now, to talk to us more about the Policy Conference, we are joined by political analyst Mzokolo Mpolase. A very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning, Albert.
Mr. Mpolase, first and foremost, let's talk about unification of the ANC. Winston Churchill said, united we fall or stand, and divided we will fall. Your thoughts on the unification of the SABC, of the ANC after the Policy Conference?
Well, it's a great feat, and one that they've not started very well. First of all, to my mind, for us to be focusing on the policy aspect as we are right now is worrying, in that this is the same party and it's having the same policy conference that is similar to something that they had in 2015 at the NGC level. Of course, that's to review, sort of a half-term review, and indeed the 2012 Mangaung conference. So what you have basically is a party, still the same party, somewhat, I would say, hindering its own progress by placing the spotlight on policy when they're still implementing outstanding policy from the previous conferences. So that is the one problem. And then when it comes to the issue of unity, the unity really does not stem from the policy per se, or the policy question. It stems from this decay of the ANC. So, and if you're going to talk organizational renewal, you need every stakeholder to be there. And I've never seen a person that progresses when they practically disown, I would say, seniors. And these are the veterans, not only just the sort of ANC Veterans League, but also the sort of Mkhonto Wesizwe type league or constituency. So unless you bring South Africa together and seek to reignite that status that the ANC had of this broad church, because it's no longer a broad church as it is right now. It is about specific interests dominating other individuals or other groupings within the ANC, which had, I'd say, historically been its strength. In that you could be leftist, you could be sort of a conservative, you could be whatever you are.
You could be a communist and you can be part.
That, exactly. And there was room enough because the policies, the thinking was quite moderate. So at the end of the day, you bring every stakeholder within that grouping. But what has become now is that we're starting to see a shift to the left, and that tends to be isolating. So even groupings that, you know, under sort of a UDF setup back then, and sort of transitioning into this ANC wider constituency. So entities such as the South African Council of Churches would have been part of that grouping. They've since divorced the ANC. Part of Labour comfortable being on its own. So what you're having is that issues are starting to make the gaps or the rifts a lot wider. And if the ANC cannot see the discussion of organizational renewal being about restoring that balance, this policy conference is a non-starter.
Now, if we look at this, the first 2 days of the conference will be boycotted by the veterans, the seniors, as you called them earlier. So what does this suggest in relation to unification of the ANC?
Well, it suggests, because, you know, they've sort of been bargaining on this issue, what becomes of it, consultative, should it be longer, should it be in September? But at the end of the day, what they've done is that, okay, you know, you do not want to acquiesce to our demands, veterans, we'll hold it without you, the door remains open. But what you do is that you create a level of antagonism, and also you remove yourself from the very advisors that you have within the party, because the value, even here at SABC, for example, the value of an old staffer is not that they know the equipment or what have you, but more importantly, they have the institutional memory to know that the policy issues that you're dealing with, where did they start, what was proposed before, because I can tell you, if you read all the way from 1997 to, I'd say, until the 2015 NGC, a lot of the policy just keeps on repeating itself. And this is exactly what's going to happen with this policy conference as well. So you're isolating the veterans to your own demise in a sense, and you almost running in the same spot, and no progress can ever be achieved in such an environment.
Having said that, if there's no unification, will the organization as a whole then adopt some of these policies or the new policies that they want to implement?
Well, as I said, you know, the interests that have come to dominate, you know, they have the mandate after the elective conference to adopt such policies. But then again, you know, I know a lot of people put a lot of emphasis on these platforms. The truth of it all is that without any key performance indicators or key performance targets, all of this is meaningless gibberish at the end of the day. So even if something is adopted at the elective conference, it will perhaps be the most rhetoric-filled aspect that will be prioritized. The rest of the other issues will be put aside. Indeed, I saw with the program that they have over the next 5 days, 6 days, they will be talking about the NDP and these policies, trying to align them with that, which is very strange because I thought the NDP is supposed to be the blueprint that we're using. So why place so much emphasis on, ostensibly, the blueprint is an ANC policy. It's developed by the ANC government, and this should be what sort of scores everything that we're doing. But as it stands right now, we're having a policy conference, revising aspects that were supposed to have already been dealt with in the NDP or any other kind of policy which with a long-term frame.
Mr. Mpolase, we'll keep you here because we might be able to still have a chat in before we go live, depending on what time the event starts. That's political analyst Mzotolo Mpolase here in studio with us. We'll also talk about policy certainty, which is critical for the economy, the country, and even for the SABC. Let's go over to Evan.
Yeah, Elvis, we've been asking a question here at the SABC. We've suffered dual shocks, losing some staff members over the last 24 hours. It's well, it's left an indelible mark here on the SABC. Our question of the day refers to that, of course. Sunna Fenta, SABC 8 journalist Sunna Fenta, if you remember. We've been asking you, how do you guys remember Sunna Fenta? And you've been tweeting us quite notably. I remember her as a woman who was passionate about children especially. Nazim Grootboom says, I can't really remember her, but she must rest in peace. Thank you for that, Nazim. She was dedicated to her job, Katlego, no doubt about that, my friend, no doubt. Siafana said, she was a person who liked her work. Sunna Fenta, may her soul rest in peace. Yes, we all remember Sunna today. Now, let's take a look at our picture of the day. This one comes from, well, a former anchor here at the SABC, and he tweets this picture of the time working with her. Of course, you'll remember Ivor Price, and well, he says, in this picture, he says, he who is brave is free. Thanks for the memories and life lessons, Sunna Fenta. You're at peace now. The hashtag there, rest in peace, Sunna. Our comment of the day, well, comes from Ferial Hafaji. Yeah, one of the great journalists in our country. She says, rest in peace, Sunna Fenta. Respect for your bravery, for your service to public broadcasting. It's a sentiment I think that everyone can agree upon. Of course, there's lots happening around the country. Let's just take a quick look what's in the courts. Yeah, we'll start in the Northwest Province, where the trial of 4 men accused of murdering Northwest businessman and ANC supporter Wandile Botswana will resume this morning in the High Court in Pretoria. There's also a trial in the Northwest of a man accused of murdering a farmer in Fenta's Dorp. Now, that will also be in the High Court sitting in Potchefstroom today. Still in the Northwest, the Mabato Regional Court in Mahikeng is expected to pass sentence today in the 12-year-old Wame Tladi's murder case. Down in the Western Cape, the sentencing proceedings are set to continue today in the murder trial of 20-year-old Cameron Wilson in the Cape Town High Court. Wilson is accused of murdering the 18-year-old Lakita Moore in Valhalla Park in September of last year. Finally, we come back to Gauteng. The Ahmed Timol inquest will wrap up today with the final witness expected to take the stand in the High Court in Johannesburg. Matters have started there. We'll keep you updated a little bit later how things proceed. Now, on Monday, we'll be talking to different stakeholders regarding the largest bird flu outbreak in South Africa. Of course, banned the sale of live hens and live chickens. Also, there's a ban coming, by the looks of it, on eggs. We'll tell you on Monday how that matter proceeds completely. But today, Africa's oldest liberation movement, the African National Congress, or the ANC, will be meeting at the Nasrec Expo Centre in Johannesburg. The government party, which turned 105 years old earlier this year, will be holding its 5th National Policy Conference. The conference draws more than 3,500 delegates from across the country. Amongst other things, the aim is to discuss the implementation of ANC policies. But why should you, as our viewer, be concerned about this policy conference? We spoke to the Deputy Secretary General of the ANC, Jesse Duarte, to give us an overview of what to expect from this specific conference.
NGOs, the business sector, church sector. So we've broadened the invitation out to quite a wide spectrum of people who had shown an interest in discussing issues about the ANC itself as well as the country. So I think we're ready. The first 3 days are all about the ANC internally. As you know, there have been people who've raised concerns, and we've also ourselves raised concerns about our organization. So what the first 3 days will be looking diagnostically at this organization that is 105 years old. Does the structure of the ANC still, is it still relevant to today's South Africa? Are we able to deal with issues that have arisen, such as gatekeeping, the elephant in the room, money, influence on people, you know, the correlation between people wanting to be elected so that they are close to resources, and looking at a value proposition of the kind of leader that we need and want. So we're not discussing leadership, and we've also said very specifically to people, we're not going to allow lobbying, so no T-shirts, no posters, no pamphlets about lobbying for any individual. There will be discussions about what type of person. And that comes from ANC documents. And you know, we're saying that they are good, there are pockets of excellence in the ANC. We need to build on those. But we also need to take very seriously the fact that there have been criticisms, loud criticisms, and we've heard them.
Talk to us through the program for the next 3 days, and let's see what is going to happen when. All right.
On the first day, there'll be a traditional opening by the president, and that's an open session 1, and the media is invited to that session. Thereafter, it's a closed session, and all the other people, other than the media, I'm sorry. So in the session, in the second session, the Secretary General will give us a diagnostic report that looks at our election results, histories, trends. We will also then look at the kind of issues that I've just raised previously, where people have raised concerns about the ANC and the challenges that we face as an organization. Then we're going to look at the National Development Plan. How has it impacted on the lives of people, and has it been implemented on time and within the costs that it said it would? Then we will have a discussion on our strategy and tactics document, which is a document that really outlines the reasons for the ANC's primary existence, actually, and the program of action that that primary existence requires, and why we are talking about a national democratic society. And then we move on from there to a discussion and a document on organizational renewal. So that's day one.
Organization renewal.
Yes.
What does that speak to?
That speaks to precisely structure of the ANC. Is it still relevant in the form that it is? And then it goes into content quite deeply. The kind of issues that people have and ourselves have complained about and discovered that we need to correct. For example, let's take local government elections. The incorrect mechanisms that are used to select a councillor, money being introduced into that system. Instead of looking at a person who's going to competently be the councillor, somebody comes along with as the Deputy President says, a brown envelope. That does happen, but it is not. I think one must also just say and be cautious about this. You know, there are very good councillors. There are over 5,000 councillors in this country. Not all of them are brown envelope people, and the generalization is a little bit unfair, I want to say that. But we'll look at that. We'll also look at behavior of people who have shown tendencies that are alien to the cultures of the ANC. You know, greed, co-option. And let me say one thing that is coming up is the concept of assimilation. That didn't we just assimilate into what we had in 1994? And hasn't the time come for a radical review of how we move forward? And I think that's going to be a brilliant debate, frankly speaking.
Now, talking about time, the conference comes at a time when the country is facing a lot of upheavals. There's downgrades. We're currently in a technical recession. Will that be forming part and parcel of the discussions at the policy conference? Because a lot of analysts out there are saying that there is policy uncertainty in the country.
Let me just say, so for the first 3 days, we'll be a bit inward looking. 3 days following that, there will be intensive discussions on the economy. The big issue for the ANC right now is the structural transformation of the economy of South Africa, which is a highly concentrated economy and does need to be more inclusive and provide the ability for an economy that works for everyone. Also that our economy is not working hard enough, and that's a problem. So the economy this time around, I would say, frankly, is the discussion. It's going to be in commission. We're trying very hard to make sure that it's not an overprescribed commission, but we know that it will be. So approximately 2 commissions will sit on just on the economy, and they'll discuss that. Social development, we look at every other policy issue, but let me be quite open and say that discussing South Africa's current economic situation will be top of mind.
And that will obviously link to the National Development Plan, which you alluded earlier.
Yes.
Now, I asked earlier in my introduction, why should viewers at home be concerned or perhaps interested in the policy conference? Your thoughts on that? Because this is the oldest liberation movement on the continent, for that matter.
Well, I think that the ANC has been the lead organization in developing transformational policies for this country. Long before 1994, actually, our voice was for change. For change of the status quo then during the apartheid years. We've moved on now. The big issue right now is, and I have to repeat that, it's controversial for some and not for others, is we've lived in an economic state that we inherited. And yes, it is a mixed economy, but it is a mixed economy that still favors people that owned the economy before we became, or rather before the majority of South Africans were free enough to move wherever they wanted to, live wherever they wanted to, and participate. So the concept and the question would be, everybody needs to look at this, not just the ANC membership. We all have to be concerned with the fact that the same people who were wealthy in 1990 are 6% wealthier now. The same people who were poor in 1990 are 13% poorer now. And that is a disaster for our country. And whether or not we like it, that is a direct consequence of the non-involvement of the majority of South Africa's people in the development of an economy that may have to have different impetus. Mining has been our major economic driver. Now it's the financial sector. Agriculture is lagging behind. What are we saying about? So there's the issue in the concept of the ownership of land and the utilization and management of land. It's not just about ownership, utilization and management. And so the discussions documents are fairly detailed on these concepts and issues. Primarily, it talks about expanding the economy to work for all the people of this country.
You did indicate earlier that you will not be discussing individuals, but it seems like the leadership race is open. There is divergent voices within the ANC. Is there a sense that the ANC is perhaps facing fragmentation?
Every 5 years, we get to this point. Every 5 years, we ask that question. What we hope for, older activists, is that there will be a united list in December that brings together these divergent voices and has a very strong leadership, representative of the people of South Africa, non-racial, non-sexist, and extremely united in its content, and a leadership that will take us through what many of us believe will be the most difficult years of our lives in this country, because we're proceeding in a trajectory that is directly coming into conflict with the status quo. And so it's going to need strong leadership that will include everybody, including the captains of industry.
Now, I did indicate earlier I could speak to you the whole day, but we don't have that much time. But from your perspective, Ms. Duarte, what do you expect from this particular policy conference?
Unity, hopefully, that we come out with a program of action that leads us into unity in action, unity of purpose, and also that we clearly define what the most important immediate steps are that we need to take in self-correcting the ANC. You know, it's all very well to say that we are dealing with one or other individual. It's a bigger problem, and it's outside of the ANC as well. It's not just the membership of the ANC. It's in fact an issue that needs us to look at our country as a whole. Poverty is something we have to eradicate. Joblessness, we have to find mechanisms to create decent work in this country. We cannot continue to say there's inequality and do nothing about it. So for me as an individual, the hope is that we will step out on the 5th with a very clear program of action that directs us towards implementation of good policies that will take us forward.
I did say finally, but the road ahead, 2019.
I'm confident that the ANC will win the elections in 2019. I never doubt that. The point is that we're not arrogant, you know, and I'll say that again. There's no arrogance intended. It's hard work, but 2019 must be about good policies. Must be about a country that steps forward, that understands that we are in a 4th industrial revolution. We need to move forward rapidly. And to move forward rapidly, we must include all the people of this country. And you know, let me say this. South Africa's business community is a strong business community. They've got to be a partner in this. And they cannot stand on the sidelines and just be critical or protective of their own terrain and turf. They've got to accept and understand that, like in 1994, when a decision was taken that democracy was the only way forward, right now, an inclusive economy is the only way forward.
You're watching a live special broadcast here as we prepare for the opening of the ANC's 5th policy conference at Nasrec here in Johannesburg. Now, just show you a live picture of what's coming out of Nasrec at the moment. Of course, the conference was supposed to start at 9 o'clock or open at 9 o'clock this morning. Well, matters are starting to proceed shortly there. As you can see, members are moving in. We're expecting President Jacob Zuma to deliver the opening address there. Well, within the hour, I'm told. There's a wider shot. As you can see, all branch members are starting to move into the main hall at Nasrec Centre here in Johannesburg, where the 5th National Policy Conference will get underway this morning. But before we get there, let's take a look at the other stories making headlines right now.
Thank you, Eben. And as you know, my guest is still sitting with me, Mkolo Mpulasi. He'll be with us up until we go live to Nasrec in a short while to the ANC Policy Conference. But let's now take a look at your news headlines. The office of the Gauteng Premier David Makhura is on fire in the Johannesburg CBD. President Jacob Zuma is expected to address the African National Congress policy breakfast this morning. And murder-accused Sandile Mantsoe is expected to appear in court as judgment on his bail application is made this morning. Now that's all coming up in a short while, but before we get there to the news, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening on the sports front.
Elvis, thank you very much. And good morning to you. We've got quite a lot on the sports front. This is what we've got planned for you for today.
It's a shock, number one, because I believe that there are few leaders in the team, but it's a big honor and one that I'll take in my stride.
South Africa will open its COSAFA Cup account on Sunday against Tanzania after the East Africans get held to a 1-0 draw by Mauritius, but still get to top Group A.
Emre Can, Yunus, he's done it now. Yet another of the youthful brigade on the scoreboard for Germany, who lead 4-1. Everything
Germany sends an ominous warning for next year's World Cup as its B team crushes Mexico by 4-1 to march on to the FIFA Confederations Cup final against Chile.
It's a fine line. If you rest him this week, then you don't play next week, then suddenly he's going to play his first game only in 3 weeks' time, and then you can almost cost the player his momentum.
Super Rugby resumes after a long international test break. Lions coach Johan Ackerman wants to regain momentum as soon as possible and selects a full-strength side to play the Sunwolves. All this and more for you in the Sports Bulletin about 10:40. For now, it's back to Elvis, who's got the news.
Thank you, Kendall. Now, news just in. A portion of the office of Gauteng Premier David Makhura in the Johannesburg CBD is on fire and has been burned. Emergency services have evacuated the offices and say that no one has been injured. The cause of the fire has not yet been established. Makhura was not at the office as he is attending the ANC policy conference. We'll bring you an update on that story a little bit later. President Jacob Zuma says the African National Congress will emerge much stronger from its 6-day national policy conference. He was delivering the keynote address at the party's fundraising gala dinner last night ahead of the start of the conference this morning. But the party goes into it divided, with veterans boycotting the first 2 days of the event, which were meant to discuss the health of the African National Congress. Now, while the party says it will go ahead, the veterans says it will be a futile exercise.
It will be a battle for the survival of the ANC, with organizational challenges top of the agenda. The president believes solutions will emerge from the ANC's policy conference.
We are all also aware of the internal organizational challenges facing our movement. We are determined to attend to these, as we have always done so in the history of the ANC. We have set aside 2 days to focus on organizational renewal. South Africa needs a strong, united, and focused ANC.
And a clarion call to delegates.
While the ANC has sound policies, we must use the policy conference to find mechanisms to accelerate their effective implementation. That will be our main focus, to say, how do we effectively implement our good policies?
This conference is billed as important as it comes at a time when the party grapples with a massive drop in support. While the ANC leadership has called on delegates to emerge much stronger and unified, some believe this conference will be used as a proxy in the succession battle.
What we'll see now is various factions in this policy conference putting in testing how warm is the water is in their favor. That's the unfortunate part. So what we're going to see in this policy conference is a factional testing of their strength towards having their political candidate winning in 2017 December.
Criselda Lewis, SABC News at Nasrec in Johannesburg.
Factional testing of its strength. How does that play out? We ask you the question, and I think you agree with the analysts there. Can this policy conference unify the ANC? 208 of you have voted now. Only 22% say yes, it will unify the ANC. A massive 78% say nope, it's not going to happen. Well, let's go back to the Nasrec Conference Centre now. Criselda Lewis is standing by with Paul Mashatile. Back to you, Chris.
Well, thank you very much once again, Eben. And unlike that poll that you've just read out now, certainly here ANC leaders believe that they will emerge from this policy conference much more united and stronger as well. Well, delegates have already started arriving. Just before we came to air, we saw quite a number of them singing some songs coming in from the different entrances, certainly waiting to see when the policy conference gets underway. Of course, we're still waiting for President Jacob Zuma to arrive here, but most of the delegates and some of the senior ANC leaders have already come through the gates as we wait in anticipation to hear what exactly the policies are that the ANC will put forward that would enhance the lives of ordinary South Africans. Let me join one of those senior leaders of the ANC this morning, the chairperson of the ANC in Gauteng, Paul Mashatile. Thank you very much for your time this morning, sir. Certainly a very important week for the African National Congress. Are you confident that, you would emerge from this policy conference united?
Yes, very good morning to all the listeners. We are very confident. Firstly, let me take this opportunity to welcome all the delegates to our province. We are very excited that we are going to have an opportunity to engage. At least in the conference, we can talk face to face about key issues that we think are very important in changing the lives of our people. We'll be discussing issues around the economy, issues around the land, and broader social transformation issues that will make our people's life better. So we are very excited to have this opportunity.
How united, though, Mr. Mashatile, because I would recall at your own provincial conference where you were discussing, of course, the policy documents, there had been some sentiment of division where you saw some of the delegates singing pro-President Jacob Zuma songs and the others singing pro-Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa songs. So how then do you think, as Gauteng, you're coming to this policy conference united, yet in the run-up to it, we're seeing a different face?
Well, we don't have a problem with delegates singing about leaders. We also don't have a problem if delegates have different preferences of leadership. We will create an opportunity for them to engage and find one another. Because at the end of the day, this period where we are, the leadership has indicated that this is a time to engage, talk about principles, talk about names, and then in September we'll start nominating. We do believe that by that time we would have found one another, not only as Gauteng, but with other provinces as well. Now that people are here, we'll be talking. But singing is not a problem. You know that when we're at our conference, people were singing about different leaders, and we don't have a problem with that.
But perhaps Mr. Mashatile does speak to the division within a particular province, where you've got that kind of sentiment which is publicly shared, where some delegates are expressing their rooting for particular candidates who they'd want to emerge at the elective conference in December.
I don't really see it as division. I think it's people expressing their preferences, but they are open to be persuade one another. So it's good for democracy. We're not suppressing anybody. We made it clear at our conference that an opportunity will come to nominate. But for now, they can sing, they can engage, they can talk, but we want to focus on policies. I think the important thing is that when we live here, we must be able to say to our people, this is what we're going to do about the economy, to grow the economy, to create jobs, to ensure that our young people have skills, they're able to start enterprises, they are supported, they can access finances. So the conference really must be what is to be done. The issues of leadership is fine, we'll debate those, but we must focus on policies.
What are some of those key policies then that you would want to see as Gauteng really pushed forward that would speak to exactly what you pointed out to enhancing and improving the lives of ordinary people? We know South Africa is pressed with quite a number of issues, but the relevance of the policies that need to come through in this conference would speak to unemployment and job creation and the widening gap when it talks about inequality in South Africa.
Most definitely, we want to ensure that the issue of radical economic and social transformation is discussed more in details, especially what do we need to do to change the structure of the South African economy, to make the economy grow faster, to make the economy create more employment, especially for young people. We want to see more support for small businesses, because small businesses create a lot of employment. So we want to see more funding for small businesses. We want to see the issue of land being fast-tracked, expropriation of land by the state to ensure that it can be used productively. We want to ensure that the issues of education, health, remain our apex priorities so that we can change the lives of the people for the better. So those are the issues we'll be focusing on.
One of the issues that came out of your provincial conference was the issue of white monopoly capital, where that sentiment that was shared that white monopoly capital does not exist in the language of the ANC. Yet we've heard the mother body express concern about white monopoly capital and the white minority still being in charge of many of the economy, if I could sum it up that way. As Gauteng, do you plan to raise that as some of the issues? Because that seemed to have been a sentiment shared by you, indicating that perhaps it's being used as a deflection from the real issues at hand.
Well, our view as Gauteng is that monopoly capital is a problem, whether white or black or any form. It creates uncompetitive behavior in the market, creates barriers to entry. And our view is that we need to be able to ensure that steps are taken to strengthen the fight against monopoly capital. We have a competition commission which we think has been doing very well to deal with this aspect. So our view is that we shouldn't really be preoccupied about white monopoly capital or whatever we call it, but we must be able to say in our economy we are against monopoly. We want to ensure more people coming into the market, particularly black people, in the mainstream of the economy. If you have monopolies, they create a problem. We know how some of the big companies in the construction industries were colluding and in various sectors of the economy. So yes, we will discuss with other comrades. Our view is that let's focus on what needs to be done.
Do you think that some are using it as a deflection from some of the real issues at hand, if you're talking about issues of state capture, if you're talking about issues of corruption?
Well, our view was that we can easily be distracted if we focus on those concepts. I think rather let's focus on radical economic transformation and what it means.
Just on a side issue, taking away from the conference just a little bit, we're also hearing that the office of the Gauteng Premier is on fire. Do we have any other information regarding that at this stage?
Not as yet. I just got the message now that there was fire on the 7th floor of the building. It's being attended to. I think later in the day we'll get a report of what actually happened.
Thank you very much for your time there. The chairperson of the ANC in Gauteng, Paul Mashatile, saying some of the policies that they will be really raising inside this conference, of course, relate to many of the pressing issues that are facing South Africa with regard to job creation, entrepreneurship, and a number of other issues. You know that Gauteng, of course, being the economic hub, certainly with quite a number of people looking for opportunities, in particular in this province, they would want to see some of those many issues being dealt with. But let me go now to my colleague Lukhanyo Calata, who's standing by with an analyst, Professor Susan Boyson, and they'll chat a bit more about what the expectation is of this particular policy conference and what likely is to come out of it.
Exactly right, Criselda. Yeah, we were supposed to have started about an hour ago. We are still waiting, as Criselda, my colleague, had pointed out a little bit earlier on, for the conference to get started. I am, however, joined now by Professor Susan Boyson from Wits School of Governance. Ma'am, good morning.
Good morning.
We were supposed to have started about an hour ago. We haven't, but we're here. Your expectations of this conference, the next 6 days, what's likely to come out of it?
You know, what is likely to come out is probably a water trading around leadership issues, maintaining the peace. In the last few days, maybe 2 weeks, we've seen a new thrust coming out that the ANC tries to subdue campaigning, preemptive campaigning for year-end elections, and tried to subdue it, came with a message of unity, unity, unity. And that is probably what we're going to expect. We know there are about 2,500 delegates from branches, and we know that they know exactly who is here. They have apparently been given very strict instructions like no campaigning, no singing, and we hear the top six, Gwede Mantashe and other people saying that is going to be the rule. So strict discipline at that level, but it will always be a subtext in the corridors. People whisper. Even now, I've just walked around the main venue where the plenary speeches will be. People watching who's talking to whom, who's greeting whom, and there are specific dynamics there. But that is one layer, but it will probably be subdued, but going forward. Policy issues, and policy issues, one has to keep two things in mind. One, are they really new policy positions? I don't think so. One doesn't really expect that from a party that has been in power for 23 years and who has continuous opportunities throughout government to introduce new policies that are in line with the broad principles. So minimal new policies, but then also much more emphasis on things like job creation, those socio-economic crises, and symbolic issues, symbolically related, and in some ways very emotively to policy that is like the land. Okay. We know that is going to feature as well.
All right. Ma'am, I just quickly want to direct your attention to what's currently taking place inside the venue. We see, I think it's the Eastern Cape region, delegates from the Eastern Cape region that are obviously in full voice there. The Eastern Cape, to a very large extent, has been a very influential bloc in the ANC. What is that province likely to contribute, in these issues of policy? One of the things that's also quite important in this is it's been seen as a bit of a proxy for what happens later on this year. So what can we expect from the Eastern Cape?
That is a very interesting issue because the Eastern Cape is not as prominent in our politics as they have been previously, where they delivered one leader after another. And some people look at the draft slates associated with a range of candidates and say, but where are the Eastern Cape people in there? We see those power mongers like in a Premier League, they feature in inordinately important positions. KwaZulu-Natal, Gauteng, people who bring large numbers of delegates to the electoral conference, they are very prominent on these slates because it's a bargaining, it's manufacturing of a majority that is taking place there. On policy issues, I don't think the Eastern Cape is going to do anything out of the ordinary.
But could we see a situation, for instance, where the kinds of policies, the stances that are taken by the various regions, by the various branches, are a testament to the current factions that are within the ANC?
In that respect, yes, one can note that, and one will be looking at these commission sessions. I think there are roughly about 300 delegates per commission, and people will be looking out for some of those jargonistic words like radical economic transformation. But then we know everybody in the ANC nowadays talks radical. The ANC has always said it's radical, if not revolutionary for that matter. And so we'll be looking at those key words. And perhaps if everybody appropriates that jargon of we are radical, etc., then you're going to look at the people in the commissions. We as media or analysts are not allowed in those commissions. We will rely on the briefings that we are provided with afterwards, but we'll be looking for how passionate, who is talking about those issues, and take it as small indicators.
Talking about passion, there seems to be quite a lot of passion that's going on inside the venue there. I think we're still waiting for President Jacob Zuma to arrive. I've seen quite a lot of the leadership standing by, being in position. Ma'am, you mentioned earlier on radical economic transformation. That's not really been a phrase or a buzzword that accompanied the previous conference. White monopoly capital is also something that over the last year and a half has come into the ANC's vocabulary. Can we expect from this conference that radical economic transformation, white monopoly capital, will form part of the ANC language, policy, as we've built up to this conference?
I certainly think it will be, and probably in conference resolutions more than we see in the draft policy discussion documents that have been circulating. But even in there are references to monopoly capital. I think the white monopoly capital, the white is often omitted there, but the general issue is there. And it's very important, and we'll see it in the discussions as well. The ANC is looking for explanations, for reasons to put forward as to why it has not been performing as well as it should have been. And we get these buzzwords in there. It is capital, and neoliberalism comes in for a huge bashing in those documents, to the extent that almost nothing is not blamed on neoliberalism in big parts of those documents, where it's to refer to corruption of leadership and how things have gone badly in government. Of course, it's never singled out to the top levels of the organization. It's always in very generic speak there, but it's actually neoliberalism, they argue there, that has seduced the people in office.
Earlier on, you mentioned that what we're likely to see coming out of this won't necessarily affect what happens in December in terms of the elective conference. But surely this here is for outsiders. They can look at this conference and with that eye to say, look, is the ANC really being serious about what happens in December, or at least is this conference really serious taking us forward to December?
You know, it's always a big issue. To what extent do the policy positions become a side issue when we get to the December elective conference? From observing, also with the SABC the last time in Mangaung, those elections, the moment those elections were finished, you just saw people pushing their luggage trolleys up the alleys at the Free State campus that time around, going home. Then they'd lost interest. So really, this time around, these policy conferences are crucial. This one is crucial to get fine-tuning of policy. And the ANC is very aware that it has not been implementing policy. It's a bit of a cliche, a huge cliche. Great policies that not just not implemented. One cannot have great policies if they are not implemented and implemented perfectly.
I actually wanted us to then start dealing with that issue. The ANC's never really had a problem with policy. Policies have always been, they've always been highly praised as very good policies. The issue has always been implementation. What does the ANC need to do? Does it need a policy that says that it must implement its own policies, or what needs to happen here?
I think that might help, yes. Because, yes, the ANC policy documents, if one goes back a little bit, check on previous ones, so many, it looks like a graveyard of policy decisions. Sometimes you get little aspects here and there that have been implemented occasionally, yes, implementation, but the bulk of them just not there. One can look at this policy conferences, legislatures and governance document. There is a whole table in one place of policy decisions, provinces, how government should be regulated internally, that have just not been implemented. And so it really looks like it's very safe very often to take policy decisions. Also, radical is not a new thing for the ANC, and especially in the time of President Zuma, from Polokwane 2007 on, radical has been specifically in these policy formulations. But so far, they have not made a big difference when it comes to changing direction of the ANC.
All right. Ma'am, I really appreciate you joining us. Thank you so very much for your time. As we conclude our discussion, we'll look a little bit at what's taking place inside the venue there as the delegates continue to wait for President Jacob Zuma's arrival to then officially open the conference. We're running about an hour and a half late already. We hope, obviously, that that the president will arrive very soon and that we can get the official program underway. For the time being, we're going to refer you back to our studio in Auckland Park, and then we hope to see you very soon.
Yes. That's our reporters live at the conference there, and of course we'll go there live as soon as the president arrives. But we're having that discussion. Well, the economy will also come under sharp focus at the conference. Our political analyst, Sandile Mantsoe, is still with us here in studio. When we closed off our conversation earlier, we talked about policy certainty. Do you think that out of this policy conference there will be policy certainty and implementation, which you referred to earlier, which is lacking?
Actually, there will be policy uncertainty because we already know that policy stability or policy certainty has been a problem. It's been the result, or it has resulted in these downgrades that we've seen. It has resulted in the jitters that many of these investors are having, and also not just the international investors, local individuals who are thinking, oh, should I scale back? Should I keep even my bank account in US dollars or something like that in order to deal with the instability? So, as I said earlier, is that if the blueprint, the ANC is in government, yes, indeed, the policy conference is a party or party political platform, that's fine. But if there's any deviation, which for all intents and purposes there is, because it's much more leftist now, it's much more radical, social expectations are increasing, so there's this sense that something must change, whether be it the mandate of the Reserve Bank, whether be it the mining sector or something like that. So what it does is that if you said that the foundation for the next 20 years, 10 years, is the National Development Plan, this is a distraction, especially if there are major deviations. And as I say, there are some deviations. And indeed, the implementation aspect of it may not come in maybe for the next 3 to 5 years. But what it does something even more dangerous and even more uncertain for a person looking to invest or a person looking to do business in South Africa, is that from this conference, if certain minister or Minister X sees that, this radical economic transformation thing is certain, and it draws a lot of votes, I may have ambitions or something like that, I'm sitting at mineral resources, let me use that as leverage. So, and it gives the sense, almost license, to then be radical. Use your portfolio allocation to be radical. So, for example, there's also something much more dangerous that's happening. In that environment, where we know, for example, let's say the digital digital move in terms of broadcast or terrestrial and all of this stuff moving to digital, we saw that the minister didn't want to align with that. So it's ANC policy that we would make the transition to all of that, but maybe she didn't feel like it because maybe she has her other priorities. So that is dangerous because she may have felt she can do that because she's got license either from the sense of where the party is going or where the key interests or stakeholders or vested interests within the party are. So this, for me, is policy uncertainty. You cannot, being the same party, you just had the NGC, you had 2012, the policy, the electoral conference. Why are we talking about radicalization of policies or rethinking fundamentally how we've been doing things? Yet 2 years ago, you were reviewing. So that creates policy uncertainty. So if I'm sitting there being a ratings agency analyst, I'm like, there's something bigger coming on here. And it may result into further downgrades. And of course, you know, a lot of people say, you know, these rating agencies are unfair, but those are the only sort of barometers to test whether South Africa is a place to keep your money.
One would have thought that the National Development Plan is that blueprint that will bring that certainty, but certainly not at this point in time. But there's also the issue of sloganeering. One of the Gauteng branch was speaking a bit earlier, Paul Mashatile, and he says there's no such thing as monopoly, white monopoly capital. He says there is monopoly capital and that we should focus on. But you hear all these slogans. And is sloganeering perhaps being driven overboard, do you think?
Definitely, and it's even much more dangerous. Now you've seen the slogans, well, previously you had factions, right? Now the factions come with their slogans at sort of not policy intensive, but at least at the slogan level, vastly different, where you can say, these are the reformers, these are the conservatives, these are the sort of leftist or radical version of everything else. So that is much more dangerous because now it means that, if that faction does emerge with its slogans, it would mean a very fundamental change in terms of the policy. Indeed, as I say, they don't articulate in terms of actual policy fundamentals, but in terms of the slogans, people view them as if there's a huge gap between them. And again, as I say this, it is unfortunate. This is the same party having the same policy conference at their same platform, they're in governance, but then you have this policy uncertainty and policy worries, which is strange because the same party should have, at the basic level, from a policy stability perspective, there should be continuity. And there's no continuity in this regard.
Talking about continuity, we spoke to the Deputy SG a little bit earlier, Jesse Duarte, and she indicated there won't be, the leadership race is not open as such, and they won't speak about personalities, but they'll speak about what sort of leader the ANC needs. Do you think that that will hold?
Well, I made a comment earlier, is that sometimes dealing with politicians, just because they say it, they assume or want you to accept it as true. To think that this is not a platform for Cyril Ramaphosa, it's not a platform for Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, and certainly those groups who want either candidate to emerge or support them accordingly. If this is not the place to do that, I don't know where it is. Yes, it's almost, yes, it comes under the guise of policy. Indeed, there will be policy discussions. But as I say, those policy discussions are around certain candidates, around certain provinces. Provinces have already made their preferences known. We know that people will be at that hall. People will be lobbying each other. People will be trying to establish cross or inter-provincial alliances. And it has to do around the factions that are dominating at this stage, the two candidates that would say are the foremost candidates at this stage.
The Tripartite Alliance, COSATU, the SACP, as well as SANCO have also called for the president to step down. Will this be under discussion at all, you think, during this conference? And because the president will be joined by all these members there.
Well, ostensibly.
And even the veterans, I might add, as well.
Yes. So, ostensibly, there should be those discussions because they will have this sort of stakeholder aspect to it for the first 2 days, where they're looking at this question of organizational renewal. And I have no doubt that the people who've made their pronouncements known, either for President Jacob Zuma to leave or resign or anything of the sort, depending which group said it, and that will be part of the discussion. And also the preferences will also be part of the discussion, because it's not just only the ANC having this fundamental question of what does it do next in order to maintain power, or at least be as healthy as it once was at some point, but it is also a question of how does it bring the alliance, the tripartite alliance, to some strength that they had before, given that many of the rifts have now become permanent. I made the case of NUMSA, for example. You know, it's almost unthinkable that they were part of the alliance, and they've seemed to thrive on their own. So it will be a question of saying, Labour, SACP, how do we bring them to the fold once more, and how do we sustain that relationship moving forward? So it's a lot to do in 5 days, I think.
Now, we talk extensively about policy certainty, but there are the issues of state capture, leaked emails, the Gupta saga. Is that perhaps part and parcel of this discussion or not, do you think?
Well, I think state capture generally, in that sense, because what has been happening, even when Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa was in Parliament, and everyone who's been speaking on the state capture issue, is that the ultimate solution, they say, is this judicial commission of inquiry that President Jacob Zuma has indicated that he'll set up, and they go with this mantra: everyone will be given an opportunity to clear their name. So I don't think it will be as substantive as that. I think they'll speak to other aspects of state capture. So some of the issues that Jesse Duarte was mentioning earlier, this bribery, lobbying,
brown envelopes.
Brown envelopes, right? So I think they're going to speak about state capture in a general sense, and in doing so, I think you won't find the solutions. But hey, it is a platform of theirs, and how they discuss it is really up to them.
Mr. Mpolase, thank you so much for your time and joining us here in studio, and of course being so patient with us this morning. That was political analyst Mzokolo, I beg your pardon, Mpolase, talking to us about the ANC's policy conference underway. Well, we hope to go live there soon as they start, but we'll take a short break. We'll be right back after that.
If we can join our hands together against the ills of our society, we can build a better nation. One youth, one South Africa.
There are people who have an agenda to overthrow the government of the African National Congress.
Factionalism has been institutionalized.
Our movement is in trouble.
The 2019 elections start from now.
Anything that is wanted urgently by the enemy should be dangerous.
It's not about us.
Review the Constitution.
Address the issue of land restitution without compensation.
The assumption that you can just change Section 25 and everything else falls into place is mistaken.
Land of white monopoly capital, it's not anywhere in the documents of the movement.
We want radical economic transformation.
We should add a position of second deputy president and 2 additional DSGs.
We need a systematic movement towards younger leadership.
We'll put faces to the voices and ask, what would Owar Tambo say? SABC News, live from the ANC Policy Conference.
Yeah, you're back with us here on the Newsroom show, and of course we're counting down to the Official opening by President Jacob Zuma of the fifth policy conference of the ANC. As you can see, the spirits are high, the mood is strong, the dancing continues. It looks like we are, well, some minutes away now, not too far away from the official opening of the matter. Yeah, the moves are well on top of the moves there. But a story that's very interesting this morning, we indicated a little bit earlier that a portion of the offices of the Gauteng Premier, David Makura, in the Johannesburg CBD, well, it was on fire this morning. Emergency services, they've evacuated all and sundry, and they've reported to us that no one's been injured. Now, the cause of the fire hasn't been established yet. Makura wasn't at the office. He's attending the policy conference at Nasrec, which is about 20 minutes away from the city centre. But for an update, somebody who's been there, our very own Matlako Komani, she was there this morning to kind of get the lowdown. You back here at the office with us, Matlako. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Just give us a quick heads up. What happened there this morning?
Well, we don't really know what happened, and the Premier's office also could not really tell us. They then got calls that the building was on fire. It's actually a portion of the top floor, which is the 7th floor. As to exactly what the actual cause was, we don't really yet know, because officials are still there. Investigations will be underway. When we left, firefighters were still trying to sort of contain the fire. Glasses were still breaking. You could actually still see flames.
And the operations of the Premier's office, has it now come to a halt?
I mean, the whole Premier's office was on the street. You could, see nothing was really happening. It wasn't business as usual. I'm sure, as the necessary protocol would indicate, that people should not be there in a burning building, because we don't know how far it would spread, if it needs to spread. I also do know that I'd heard that because they park underground, so vehicles and that type of stuff was still there. So I think the primary concern was just getting humans out of the actual building. Yeah,
securing people's safety. But now you saw it. What's the kind of extent of the damage? Is it entire floors gutted, or just bits and bobs?
From where we were standing, it was like a portion of it that was there were actual flames, but I think other parts the firefighters had tried to contain it, but it's a large chunk of the 7th floor that the flames had gone through.
Matlaka, thanks for giving us that update. She's just back from these are live pictures that you are seeing from there. As you can see, good fire always draws a crowd, doesn't it? We love fire in South Africa, that's for sure. You can see emergency personnel. They are out on the street. They've now brought this fire, well, they've brought it under control, we are told. As you can see, fire personnel well into their work there as they try and bring complete control of this fire. Now, the President has just arrived at Nasrec, but they're still minutes away there. It's a very busy sporting weekend ahead of us. Here you can see the live pictures as the ululating has started. But let's just get a quick sports update ahead of a busy sporting weekend here from Kendall Mahamate.
Thank you very much. Here in a very big day in the world of South African politics. But you know what? Here's a little bit of sports. Something that you're all looking forward to is about how Bafana are looking at winning the COSAFA Cup tournament currently underway in Rustenburg. Will not necessarily be Bafana coach Stuart Baxter's priority. Baxter will use the tournament to gather information on his players as he seeks to deepen the pool of players for the national team.
And I put my head down, you go.
The timing of the COSAFA Cup tournament is ideal for Baxter. It comes ahead of the Chan and crucial World Cup qualifiers. In fact, this camp will be the longest since his return to the Bafana setup. He refers to the tournament as a developmental competition at a senior level. It's no surprise that the average age of this team is just 22. It will therefore give him an idea of the individual quality these players possess in a collective.
I want them to show me that you're an international player. You can come, not know the opponents, not know your teammates, show a great attitude, be proud to wear the shirt and give a performance. And that's what I'm hoping that some of the players will show.
Bafana Bafana are the defending champions. However, winning at all cost is not priority.
We need more out of it than just a positive result. We need information. So I want to form that sort of pathway that young players can follow. That it's not just hit or miss. Call him in when he's had a good game, throw him away when he's had a bad one. You know, I want him to be able to see that I'm not falling away. You know, and that's what we're trying to do with these two events, the COSAFA and CHAN. Make it part of that pathway.
Greece-based Lehlohonolo Masalesa will captain the side. The former Orlando Pirates midfielder made a move to AEL Larissa in January and has been able to help his side maintain their top-flight status in the Super League. He was made aware of his appointment during the media briefing.
Vieira will be the captain for this tournament. I don't. He just bribed his way. His complimentary remarks earned him the armband. No, that was decided before his comments. So.
I don't know about it. And I wasn't trying to be captain.
No, I know.
It's a shock, number one, because I believe that there are few leaders in the team, but it's a big honor and one that I'll take in my stride.
Meanwhile, the team has been dealt a blow with the withdrawal of Cape Town City FC midfielder Obringoba due to a torn knee ligament. His replacement will be named soon. Lebohang Tube, SABC News in Phokeng near Rustenburg.
Now, South Africa will play Tanzania in the quarterfinals of the 2017 COSAFA Cup this coming Sunday. Tanzania played to a 1-1 draw against Mauritius at the Murling Stadium to finish top of Group A on goal difference. Angola could have threatened Tanzania's qualification. However, they ended up playing to a goalless draw against Malawi.
A loss and a draw to show for themselves, Malawi were intent on giving a good account of themselves at the tournament. They would have felt aggrieved at not getting a penalty as Dailitso Selezi was felled in the area. And as the Bafana Bafana technical coaches paid close attention to this fixture, given that their quarterfinal opponent could be involved, Malawi continued to create chances and probed the Angolan defense. However, it was Angola that needed the goals if they wanted to top Group A, and they were finding them hard to come by. The Angolan strikers could not argue with the service they were getting. However, the execution and technique in front of goal was clearly lacking. And as the half wound down, Angola remained the more threatening of the two sides. Nevertheless, it was 0-0 at the break.
Good when they worked it out wide to the left and right.
In the second half, Malawi returned with a vengeance, forcing the keeper into action and coming close at the far post. Frustration was growing as the hour mark rolled around. Malawi started to try the unconventional route, but to no avail. The Angolan danger man VAR also took it upon himself to try and change the stalemate. However, a good run into the box came to nothing. It seemed it would be a night where no matter how many chances there were, the goals just would not come. 0-0 was how it ended. Simon Burke, SABC News.
Okay, in the Confed Cup, Germany brushed aside Mexico 4-1 in the semi-finals and will be facing Chile in the final. Germany head coach Joachim Löw opted not to bring his World Cup winning stars to the Confed Cup. However, Germany's young guns booked their place in Sunday's final in St. Petersburg with a devastating spell in Sochi. Here are the highlights.
Stindl in front of him, it's aimed at Goretzka! That's a fantastic opener! Hard to better that! Werner this time. And again it's Goretzka. Ochoa's coming off his line! Leon Goretzka's made it too! And Germany looks simply unstoppable here. Araujo got a little toe in, it's still Julian Draxler. And that's beautiful for Hector. Fantastic! Timo Werner strokes it home. And now Germany surely are on their way to the final. Well, it's like buying a ticket in the lottery, this. Give it to me and I'll have a go, and it might be my lucky night, and it was. And yet again, Germany do not keep a clean sheet in this tournament. Brandt Emre Can, Yunus. He's done it now. Yet another of the youthful brigade on the scoreboard for Germany, who lead 4-1. Everything Yogi Löw has touched in this tournament has turned to gold.
Right, we'll carry on now giving you the sporting news. As you can see, we're looking at visuals right now which are live as we're looking at President Jacob Zuma having a chat there with the Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa. We'll be bringing that live to you later on as Eben will take you there. But for now, a little bit about how the Lions rugby coach Johan Ackerman has selected a full-strength team for this Saturday's Super Rugby clash against the Sunwolves in Johannesburg. Now, most of his players were involved in a tough but successful international window, and he preferred to build on the momentum due to a bye for the team next week.
Hjalten Jantjies, Kortnel Skousen and Andries Coetzee played every minute of every test match against France. Franco Mostert was only substituted late in 2 of the tests, and he was one of the most physical players for the Boks. Jaco Kriel takes over from the injured Warren Whiteley as Lions captain. He was prominent in the last test and didn't play as much as his teammates, but says the players themselves don't care about resting.
Coach really cares about the players. He will call them in and he will ask them, listen, don't you want to rest? Don't you want to take a week off or so? And the answers will always be no. They want to be part of the team. They want to play on the field. They want to be there for 80 minutes. They even will moan when coach take them off during the game and not playing 80. So that's just the culture we're in, and that we're very fortunate to have it.
The coach, standing on the sidelines, has a more objective approach, and he also believes that despite playing a lower-ranked team on the lock, it's better to let the big guns fire.
It's a fine line. If you rest him this week, then you don't play next week, then suddenly he's going to play his first game only in 3 weeks' time, and then you can almost cost the player his momentum. So, our gut feeling was that, if everybody can get through this game, we can refresh everybody up and then go into that last bit.
The match kicks off at 5:15 on Saturday afternoon. Harry Olivier, SABC News, Johannesburg.
All right, that's where we leave it with the sport. We've got a whole lot ahead of us. We also know that the NPC is almost in session, with the president having arrived shortly. Let's have a quick look at what's happening with the weather forecast.
Yeah, welcome back. Let's just take a look at the live pictures coming from Nasrec, where we saw, of course, pictures a little bit earlier of President Jacob Zuma and Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa showing a united front as they were on the podium there. Yeah, we can see, of course, that branch members from all around the country have now taken their seats as they prepare for the 6-day event. Yes, this event will carry on from today into next week, Wednesday, with so many matters under the spotlight. There you see all the heavy hitters on the stage in front there, as of course the ANC is preparing for a watershed event. Some are calling it. A little bit earlier we saw, of course, President Jacob Zuma and Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa showing a united front there. Quite jovial, the mood there. You see the likes of Andrew Mlangeni in the picture, Batapile Dlamini, Lindiwe Sisulu, Jesse Duarte there doing the final logistic. Jeff Khadebe is there. We see all the ANC members. There's Jackson Mthembu coming in, shaking the hand of the president. Yeah, it's a big week ahead for the ANC, of course. We've been running a poll and talking exactly to these pictures about unity. Yes, can this conference unify the ANC? We see these jovial pictures of leaders shaking hands, hugging, laughing at each other's jokes. A united front is what they're putting forward. We've got 227 votes. You guys don't agree with the pictures. You say no, it's not going to be the case. This conference will not be able to unify the ANC. 77% of you are saying so. Tata Kakanya Masiza says, Newsroom, when COPE was formed, it signified the beginning of the end of the ANC. A party like that cannot govern, says Tata Masiza. This one from Mr. G says, I believe my ANC will emerge victorious. This one from Terence, who says, ANC lives, ANC lead. They will emerge united. This one from Luvo, but let's leave it there. The Speaker of the House, Balagambete, she's taken to the podium. Let's go live to Nasrec as matters get underway.
Charged with the affairs of all delegations, please make sure your delegates are together and are in the hall so that the conference can start. All buses have arrived, but we would like all the secretaries to finalize issues relating to their delegations and make sure that delegates are together, delegates are in the hall.
Welcome back to Nasrec, where we finally, things are about to get underway. A little bit earlier on, we saw President Jacob Zuma arriving. We saw him having a very long conversation there with his Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa. Let me say that rather. I'm joined by my colleague Criselda Lewis in studio. Criselda, we here. It's about to get underway.
Quite a resounding welcome. A very good morning to you once again. Quite a resounding welcome for President Jacob Zuma as he made his way into the Expo Centre here at Nasrec, south of Johannesburg. These are live visuals from inside that Expo Centre there. Quite embracing, I saw there, of the party veteran as well, Winnie Madikizela Mandela, of President Jacob Zuma as well, as he made his way inside the Expo Centre. She's been one of those who's been critical of the African National Congress and the goings-on of late within the party, which it's bound to come to the fore in this policy conference.
Look, I think what was happening is that the two of them, or at least the leadership coming in, was to reinforce what has been spoken about in this week, which was unity. Unity. We need to show unity. We need to show that as the ANC we are united going into this conference. So when looking at those visuals, I think they're just, that public reinforcing of, look guys, we are here, we are together. Yes, sure, we may differ on issues X and Y, but in general, we're together, we're united, and I think the conference hall has filled up quite nicely.
Absolutely. Different provinces, of course, carrying the different placards from the Eastern Cape, from Gauteng as well. And, the sense of unity that we've been seeing here at the Expo Centre this morning really tries to, I guess, mask what we all know is in the public domain with regard to the African National Congress and perhaps some of the pressing issues which would need to be discussed over the next 2 days, in particular the 2 days that have been set aside for organizational renewal. Let's just take a listen to some of the songs that are being sung there, but quite a lot about President Jacob Zuma, and I guess the expectation is that you'll also hear some songs on the Deputy President as well. If you recall, of course, at some of the provincial presidential conferences that we saw in the run-up to this national one, you had a lot of that sentiment there, Lucanio, where you had pro-President Jacob Zuma songs that were sung, as well as the Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa. Let's just take a listen to what exactly is taking place inside there.
Time. The secretaries must go and fetch to the left of myself in the hall all the listening devices for their delegations. The secretaries must go to the back, to the left. There are listening devices for all of us that the secretaries must pick up before we start, because there'll be simultaneous translations.
Those who need it.
The secretaries will, of course, know who needs it. The secretaries will know whether you need it or not. Awushayi ingoma lapho.
Well, visuals there from inside the conference center, where it seems, well, the national chairperson, Mbalo has just announced that the conference will officially get underway in 5 minutes' time. Griselda, just before the conference gets underway, this conference comes at a very difficult time for the ANC. It comes at a time when Parliament is busy investigating at least 5 members, key members of the cabinet, you know, for corruption-related matters. What do you think we're likely to get out of this conference that will kind of show us the way as to what will happen in December?
Certainly what will come to the fore here is that while this may be the policy conference, you know, in many of the analysis that we've been getting in the run-up to this policy conference is that you will get a sense of exactly who might emerge at that elective conference. This is just a stone's throw away. And to think that that might not be one of the things that these delegates are here to press forward on would certainly be naive to think so. You would see likely with the kinds of policies that are being pushed forward, exactly who is supporting who. Many analysts have gone as far as saying, you would see, for example, for those who are supporting the Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa, many of the issues will speak to state capture, will speak to the relationship that the Guptas have with key prominent figures within the South African government, and also corruption is one of the issues that will really be highlighted. And on the other hand, what they're saying is that when you see the delegates who are supporting Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, you'd get quite a lot of the policies that are speaking to radical economic transformation, as well as quality education. Those are some of the things that have come to the fore since in the run-up to this policy conference. So this will set the bar for who is likely to emerge in December by the means of the policies that come out of this ANC policy conference. So it would be quite naive to think that this doesn't set the tone for what is likely to happen in December.
Also, I would imagine that these policies, I mean, as we were discussing earlier on, will find will find voice in the manifesto. Will then, should the ANC win in 2019, will then find its voice as government policies, those policies that will. Yes, corruption is a key issue that will be discussed here. Issues of leadership will be discussed here, but hopefully the ANC doesn't focus only on corruption and all of this, and then let other issues such as education, such as the economy, such as land, for instance, which has been quite a key issue. Hopefully those issues will also get quite an airing here.
It will be quite dangerous for the ANC to emerge from this conference without addressing some of those key issues. First of all, remember that these are the policies that the ANC needs to highlight, which will take the country and the economy forward. So, judging already from what has been said in the run-up to this policy conference, yes, there are many pressing issues relating to state capture, the Gupta emails, as well as corruption. But to deal with the fundamental and pressing and relevant issues that are affecting service delivery, that are affecting ordinary South Africans, and I think many of those certainly who have taken interest in this policy conference would want the restoration of that confidence to come from what policies the ANC will come out of through this conference that will affect them. Because just to quote from what the ANC NEC member as well as spokesperson of the ANC was saying this morning, this conference doesn't belong to the African National Congress. It belongs to the people. So if you're going to talk about policies, these are not policies that affect ANC members. These are policies which will affect the ordinary South Africans, including yourself and I.
Talking about that, the ANC has been in government for 23 years. What are the chances that from this policy conference we're likely to see wholesale new policies? It's been in government. I was speaking a little bit earlier on to Professor Susan Boyson, and she pointed this out to say that the ANC does have opportunities within government to change policy. So what new can we expect to come from this, if at all?
One of the major issues I think everyone is looking to is the issue of land. The ANC needs to come up with a policy or something that will speak to, in particular, the issues relating to land. I think we see a lot of focus, not just with the African National Congress, with opposition parties as well, including the economic freedom fighters, who've been steadfast on the issue of land. So that's one of the key issues that needs to be addressed by the African National Congress. But amongst that, certainly one would not hope, or would hope rather, that all of that is not overshadowed by the shenanigans within the African National Congress, that so much focus is not put on the challenges that the African National Congress is facing, issues relating to land, to education, dealing with South Africa's economy that's currently in a recession. How does the ANC plan to resuscitate the economy from the current crisis that it finds itself in? But let's not deprive you of what's taking place inside that Expo Centre, where those thousands of delegates have converged there. The program is about to get underway any moment now. The ANC National Chair, Baleka Mbete, calling for a bit of order there, and perhaps will begin the program very soon, and what the rules will be of the House. We're expecting her to lay those out very shortly.
We will actually have to adjust the program in keeping with the fact that we have lost a lot of time. We will quickly ask that Amakawe Choir must lead us in the national anthem. We would like to ask everybody, in terms of our courtesy and national protocols, just to stand to order for the national anthem.
Nkosi sikeleli Afrika, maluphakanyiso phondo lwayo, izwa imithandazo yethu. Nkosi sikelela, Nkosi sikelela, Nkosi sikeleli Afrika, maluphakanyiso phondo lwayo, izwa imithandazo yethu. Nkosi sikelela thina lusapho lwayo. Woza moya, woza moya, woza moya, ingcwele. Nkosi sikelela thina lusapho lwayo. Morena boloka sitjhaba sa Yesu, ufedise dintwa di matshwenyeho. Morena boloka sitjhaba sa Yesu, ufedise dintwa di matshwenyeho. Usiboloke, 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 usiboloke sitjhaba sa Yesu, sitjhaba sa Afrika.
Remember, it's the national anthem.
National.
Find out.
No, wait.
Let us all unite and celebrate together the victories won for our liberation. Let us dedicate ourselves to rise together, to give and our liberty and unity. Oh, sons and daughters of Africa, flesh of the sun and flesh of the sky, let us make Africa the tree of life. Let us all unite and sing together to uphold the bonds that friend our destiny. Let us dedicate ourselves to fight together for lasting peace and justice on earth. Oh, sons and daughters of Africa, flesh of the sun and flesh of the sky, let us make Africa the tree of life. Let us all unite and toil together to give the best we have to Africa. The cradle of mankind and fount of culture, a pride and hope and break of dawn. flash of the sun and flash of the sky. Let us make Africa the tree of life.
Thank you very much. May we be seated. I will call upon Reverend Mehana and his team for the interfaith prayers.
We now come to the moment of solemn prayers. May I now request the conference to give this moment the dignity it deserves. As we begin this conference, we'll take a mental flight to the 8th of January, 1912, when then Chief Chaplain of the ANC, Reverend Dr. J.M. Koboli, was leading the prayers as he sang Diosoga's song. And as we sing this song that opened and started this movement, we will all rise and sing together. Lizale setingala apo tikongo sienya niso zokinta gato welezwe masizuse osini so amadolo welezwe magago bepambe Let us be seated.
Namah Shivaya Varganathan Tavarga Ulagala Munando Dangariyavan Nilamulavian Nirmani Vendian Alagil Sodian Nambalatiladuvan Malashilambadi Vashti Vananguvam Ammayeng Appa Uppila Maniye Namah Shivaya. Embodiments of love and gracious light, Almighty God, we thank you for all the resources that you have blessed us with. We thank you for this beautiful day, that we're all alive, fit, well, and healthy, that we gathered here in good faith. Oh, Almighty God, bless us with the resources that we will make rational decisions, and this day will be responsible for all our action. And Almighty God, we'll respond positively to all situations. And we thank you for all the resources that you have blessed us with. Our duty today is to give unconditional love to every single one, that all mankind can live in peace, harmony, and unity. And only through unity will we succeed. The changes that we want is not external, it is internal. It's with you. The change you want to see, we have to make. So, Almighty God, grant us the power and strength to see love in everyone, because there's only one religion, the religion of love, only one caste, the caste of humanity. Almighty God, we thank you for this beautiful day and bring peace, love, and unity to all of us. Thank you. May God bless you.
Ngiyabingelela egameni lika Jesu sisazothandaza ngicela sivale amehlo sithandaze. Baba wethu oyingcwele nonguyise wenkosi yethu Jesu Kristu, silapha singumbutho sisondela kuwe. Moya oyingcwele uthe uma sakha indlu singakumemi wena sakhela ize. Ingako manje ekseni siyakumema uNkulunkulu wethu. Kunezwi owalisho ngoJesu uma ezowela nabafundi bakhe besemkhunjini, kuvuka izwi enhlizweni yami ukuthi yayikhona neminye imikhumbi emncinyane. Moya oyingcwele iphakathi olwandle umkhumbi noJesu wahlaseleka. Silapha this morning, moya oyingcwele, to awake you, to calm the storm esingene phakathi emkhunjini. Moya wengcwele siyakhuleka nayi inhlangano yethu kaKhongolose simema wena uNkulunkulu wethu ukuthi umkhumbi esiphakathi kwawo uyahlaselwa imkhumbi emincane, kodwa uma singavusi wena uthulise lemimoya ekhona. Moya wengcwele singefinyelele lapha siyakhona. Simbonga wena uNkulunkulu wethu ukuthi this morning sizovusa wena ukuthi thulisa umoya ukuze amaza angawugwinye umkhumbi egameni nasegazini lika Jesu. Siyabonga moya ingcwele. Amen.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. All praise is due to God, Lord of all the universe, the compassionate, the most merciful, Master of the day of judgment. Guide us on the straight path, the path of those whom thou hast favored, and not the path of those who earn thy wrath, nor of those who go astray. O Lord, bless us to fulfill all our responsibilities to the best of our capabilities. And O Lord, forgive us for our sins and perfect our light. Ameen. برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
Let us pray. Father, we submit to your authority. We submit to your lordship. We submit to your kingship. We bring before you the 5th National Policy Conference of the African National Congress. We have come from the north, the south, the east, and the west, from all corners of South Africa, to represent your people. We have gathered together and converged on this place to craft, to write the vision for the people of South Africa. Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 2 says, write the vision and make it plain upon tablets, that they who read it may run with it. It says, though it tarries, wait for it, because it will surely come to pass. Lord, I pray, let it come. Let it come for your children. Let it come for the young and the vulnerable women. Let it come for the people of this nation, our beautiful South Africa. I pray, God, restore our value systems again. Restore the health of our movement. Lord, let us realize as we bow before your presence, every delegate that is here, the awesome, great responsibility upon our shoulders to make the right decisions so that, Father God, you can turn South Africa around. Let the policies, Father God, emancipate our people. Break the yoke of poverty. Break the yoke of unemployment. Break the yoke of inequality from the necks of your people. I ask you humbly, delegates, let us lift up our hands before God today in this place. As I bless this conference, I bless in the name of the Father, in the name of the Son, and in the name of the Holy Spirit. And everybody say amen. Amen.
Thank you, friends, for having us, for having me. I'd like to say how it is not for granted and how unique it is for this country, for us to be able to be here, representatives of different religious groups, standing for the tolerance and the religious tolerance and love in this country. I want to tell you, as somebody who grew up in the Middle East, how it is not for granted. And I'm honored to be here with you. I want to tell you that as a minority within the Jewish community, as a progressive Jew, here in South Africa, we have wider religious tolerance and wider religious freedom than in my country, in Israel. It is a source of strength and pride to South Africa, as much as it's a source of shame and distress for all Jews. I'd like to read from our progressive prayer book, the Mishkan Tefillah Gates and Well of Prayer. Pray for community leadership. We read it in our meetings of our management committees and so on. We say the following: Eternal God, let us feel your presence when we deal with the mundane matters. May the aims we set ourselves and the means we choose to implement them be in accord with your will. Make us conscious of our responsibilities as leaders of this community by the example we set and the policies we adopt. May we help our members to understand our heritage and to work for the welfare of society. Grant us, O Lord, the wisdom to build on past achievement, the humility to learn from past mistakes, and the courage to think new thoughts and to consider new ideas. May we listen to each other with respect, judge each other with loving kindness, and may our controversies be only for the sake of heaven. Guide us with your counsel and establish the work of our hands. Amen, so be it. Amen, so be it.
Modimo ntate, modimo mora, modimo moya o halalelang. Lentswe ke le reng o re tshwarele melato ya rona jwale ka re tshwarela ba re sitetsweng. O ska re isa molekeng o mpe o re lwanele ho ye mobe. Hobane mmuso ke wa hao, matla le dintho tse di matsong hao. Lebitsong le letle la morena wa rona Jesu Kriste. Amen.
And now for all these prayers that have been given to you, O Lord, reignite in the hearts and minds of all of us who are in this conference. The theme of this conference that calls on us to unite. In the name of Father Tambo. Unity, we know, Lord, is not a commodity. As your son Jesus said, I am one with my Father. Let the delegates of this conference be one with each other. Let them be one with you. Sharpen the minds of each and everyone who will participate in these few days. But as you do that, make them to be mindful of the foundations of this movement. Let us not go astray from the foundations that have been left by our forebearers. and for those who are not here, who are members of this movement.
Welcome to you if you're joining us on SABC 2 at this time. We're broadcasting to you live from the Nasrec Center, where, of course, the ANC is busy with its 5th National Policy Conference. You join us just in time as the delegates are busy finishing the Interfaith service. And then in a few minutes, we do expect President Jacob Zuma to take to the podium to give the opening address of the conference. But while we wait for the President, I am joined in studio by Professor who's going to be with us for the rest of the week as we bring you live coverage from Nasrec. Prof, if I can bring you in here. Firstly, good morning.
Good morning, good morning. Delighted
Thank
to be
you
here.
very much.
It's things are finally about to get underway. Prof, if we can talk very briefly as we wait for the President, how crucial is the policy conference in for the ANC? Because in the way that I see it, this is the foundation upon which the next administration then builds the House.
This is not about just policy, but it's policy that will guide the NEC, or rather the ANC National Conference. What kind of policies, what kind of issues should they prioritize? What kind of leadership are they looking for? Because you have two twin problems in the ANC, really. It's leadership crisis. There's a lack of credibility for the leadership. At the same time, our economy is not doing well. So serious decisions must be taken, and those decisions must be taken, not only taken, but be implemented by people with integrity. See, it was quite useful for the Reverend to invoke Tio Soka's hymn, to remind the ANC of its own roots, that the ANC is not about the seizure of power, but it's about ethical orientation. The founders of the ANC have always dedicated themselves to public service. They put the people first. They didn't put their interests first. He went on to say that they should make sure that they don't deviate from that. They remember their own ancestry.
All right. I think that's a very good place to leave. But let's listen in now where the chairperson, Mbalo, is at the podium.
As we start with the welcoming remarks, comrades, I welcome all the delegates from all branches coming from all the communities all over South Africa. We welcome our guests. We welcome people from fraternal organizations from inside and outside South Africa. We welcome the people of the media who play a very important role, and that is that they will convey the proceedings that will be happening in this hall in the next few days so that South Africa has a clear view of what's happening. As we are gathered here, comrades, on the last day of the Youth Month, a month that reminds us of the role of young South Africans from 105 years ago. We remember Pixlika Isaka Seme, we remember Charlotte Maxeke, who were all at the founding conference. We salute them. We pay tribute to the young Oliver Reginald Tambo and the generation of his colleagues and comrades who left us the legacy of the Youth League and the Women's League. And they left us a lot of good lessons, comrades. And today we are holding the 5th National Policy Conference in the year of Oliver Tambo, where we remind ourselves that we have to deepen unity. In this conference, I call upon all of us, comrades, as we go in and out of here, as we go up and down the precincts of this Nasrec venue of our conference, to remember that we must unite ourselves in how we conduct ourselves as cadres of the movement. Even in the songs that we sing, we must unite this organization. Comrades, we have heard our people. Bakhulumile abantu bakhuluma ngokusithanda, bakhuluma nangentukuthelo, kodwa sibezwile abantu ukuthi bathini kithina. In everything we do in this conference, we must remember the sounds of the voices of our people. We have heard our people, and the work we do in this policy conference, the outcomes of this policy conference must be such that it shows that we are a listening organization. The African National Congress of Oliver Tambo, that leader who taught us how to love, to be strong, to be humble, while we are being steadfast in our convictions, in our belief in the values of the African National Congress. Comrades, I will now ask that we receive the message and the opening message from the President of the African National Congress, Comrade Jacob Gedleyihlekisa Zuma. Thank you.
Two Matsa Yaruna, all power, all power. Siabong, Rialebo. Thank you very much indeed, comrades. Comrade Chairperson, Comrade Mbete, Deputy President, Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa, National officials of the ANC, members of the National Executive Committee,
leadership of the leagues of the ANC Women's League, the ANC Youth League, the ANC Veterans League, leadership of the SACP, COSATU, and SANCO, leadership of MKMVA, stalwarts and veterans of our movement, leadership of all structures of the mass democratic movement, traditional leaders, religious leaders, and business leaders, esteemed delegates from all ANC structures, especially the branches, international guests, comrades and friends, fellow South Africans. We convey warm greetings to all of you at the 5th National Policy Conference of the African National Congress. Over the next few days, we shall scrutinize the health of the organization in pursuit of organizational renewal and also discuss our policy proposals for the country ahead of the National Conference in December. Our discussions must be informed by unity, which is the rock upon which the ANC was founded. We were taught this by the founding leaders of the movement. In 1911, when he announced the founding conference of the ANC, Pixley Zagasem made an appeal for unity, stating that, and I quote, "The demon of racialism, the aberrations of the Xhosa Fingo feud, the animosity that exists between the Zulus and the Tongas, between the Basutus and every other native, must be buried and forgotten. It has shed among us sufficient blood. We are one people. These divisions, these jealousies are the cause of all our wars and of all our backwardness and ignorance today." Close quote. Unity must be the thread that keeps this movement and our country together. Comrades and compatriots, the policy conference takes place during a difficult period economically in our country. The economy has entered into a technical recession. At the time of the budget in February, the economy was expected to grow at a low 1.3% in 2017. Given the current difficulties, even this low growth rate may now not be achieved. Our deliberations in this conference on the economy will need to look at what needs to be done to reignite growth over the next 5 years. This conference also takes place against the background of good progress that has been made in the country in the past 23 years in consolidating democracy and also in expanding access to a better life. We have, over the past 2 decades, developed a functional democratic state with an executive, parliament, and judiciary that continue to execute their tasks informed by the Constitution, serving the people of our country. The ANC affirms the independence of the judiciary and the rule of law, and we promote respect for our courts as final arbiters in disputes in society. Our constitutional democracy is also characterized by freedom of the media, which is enshrined in the Constitution. The ANC promotes the rights of journalists to work freely, safely, and without hindrance in our country. We also promote media independence from various interests, professionalism, as well as balanced and accurate reporting at all times. The ANC government has worked consistently to expand basic services that improve the quality of life to the poor and the working class. These include improved education and health care, housing for the poor, electricity, water, and infrastructure in areas that were neglected by the previous apartheid regimes. Social security has been expanded to reach 18 million people, made up of vulnerable children, including orphans under the age of 18, senior citizens, persons with disabilities, and military veterans. This has contributed immensely to the alleviation of extreme poverty. This is in addition to other social security covers like unemployment insurance, compensation for injury or duty, and road accident cover. These have also been made accessible to all our people. The ANC has increased access to economic opportunities for black people who were excluded before through various economic programs. The ANC prides itself on the growth of the black middle class through its policies and programs, including affirmative action and broad-based black economic empowerment. These need to be broadened to reach even more people in the next 5 years. The huge pension of basic services, the huge expansion of basic services has been achieved in spite of an economy that had been gutted by the apartheid system. Much more still needs to be done to reach more communities who are still waiting for services across the country. Conference will thus need to reflect on the pace and quality of the implementation of ANC programs and how this can be improved further to improve the lives of more people in our country as we reverse the legacy of apartheid colonialism. Comrades and compatriots, the ANC is a national liberation movement which now is in government. The movement has also faced several challenges over the past few years in the changing terrain of struggle, which have impacted on the character of the organization. There has been a development of some very negative tendencies which have caused frustration and disillusionment amongst the membership and population at large. This policy conference is called upon to seriously look into these developments and emerge with recommendations that will help redirect the movement to its core business and its core mission and character. In doing so, we must draw on lessons from the past 100 years with regards to how the ANC has survived to become the oldest liberation movement in the continent. The ANC survived for a century because of, amongst others, the following traits: its deep roots and connection with the people, its vibrant internal democracy and collective leadership, its readiness and willingness of its members to make sacrifices in pursuit of the cause of the people as a whole, its readiness to acknowledge its weaknesses and decisively address them in order to escalate and accelerate the people's struggle, its ability to adapt to changing conditions and rise to the occasion at critical moments, and its ability to uphold and build unity across sections of South Africans and progressive forces in the world in pursuit of the cause of humanity. Importantly, the ANC has succeeded in the past decades due to its capacity to mobilize other sectors such as business and faith-based community, non-governmental organizations, community organizations, the sports fraternity, students, traditional leaders, the international community, and the intelligentsia, amongst others, behind the program of transformation. We need to restore these traits as they have made the ANC a parliament of the people. It is not the first time that we discuss organizational renewal. We do it ahead of every national conference of our movement. However, at this conference, we must be solutions-based. We must not just end by diagnosing the problems and perhaps analyzing the problems, but we must develop solutions to those challenges. We will discuss the health of the organization not just for the sake of it, but because our country needs a united, strong, focused, and cohesive ANC. The ANC belongs to the people of South Africa, and we must fix it so that it can continue improving the lives of our people. Ahead of the discussions, we need to remind ourselves of the objectives and the mission of the movement. The ANC is guided by the objectives of the National Democratic Revolution. As outlined in our strategy and tactics document, the main content of the National Democratic Revolution remains the liberation of Africans in particular and blacks in general from political and socio-economic bondage. It means uplifting the quality of life of all South Africans, especially the poor, of whom are African and female. The National Democratic Revolution seeks to resolve the main and interrelated contradictions of national oppression based on race, class, especially the exploitation of black workers and the triple oppression of women. The ANC also remains committed to the objective of the National Democratic Revolution of uniting South Africans in building a united, non-racial, non-sexist, democratic and prosperous South Africa. The non-racial character of the movement has indeed always been one of the defining features of the ANC. The ANC also remains a multi-class organization with a bias towards the working class and the poor. The ANC also seeks to retain and strengthen its position as the strategic center of power, the leader of the alliance, a disciplined force of the left, a mass movement, and an internationalist movement with an anti-imperialist outlook. Importantly, our discussions should be geared towards restoring the core values and principles of our movement. These are unity, selflessness, sacrifice, collective leadership, humility, honesty, discipline, hard work, internal debates, constructive criticism and self-criticism, and mutual respect. This is the ANC that our people know and love. We know too that despite the challenges it faces currently, the ANC still represents the hopes, dreams, and aspirations of millions of our people. Our people want the ANC to resolve its difficulties and continue with its mission of transforming South Africa and building a better life for all. To restore and maintain its character, the ANC needs to cleanse itself of the negative tendencies which have crept in over the years. These tendencies, which have been outlined before, include patronage, corruption, social distance, factionalism, abuse of power, and membership system anomalies, such as the reported manipulation of the membership data, gatekeeping, and bulk buying of membership. Factionalism is a cancer that must be rooted out of the ANC. It has caused splits from the ANC, which has negatively affected us both quantitatively and qualitatively. Slate politics, another manifestation of factionalism. Has cost us many good and capable comrades in whom our movement has invested significantly. We also need to look at the issue of ill discipline in various forms, including public utterances attacking the movement by ANC leaders and members, instead of handling matters within the organization and finding constructive solutions. Some members and leaders of the ANC have become primary conveyors of negative information about their own movement. The challenge for the country is that this irresponsible perpetual negative messaging by our own people has a negative impact on the economy. We need to discuss how we can balance our valued trait of self-criticism with the need to protect the ANC and provide it with the space to resolve problems in a more organized manner. We also need to be able to differentiate between self-criticisms and the furtherance of certain interests and agendas. Comrades, our movement suffered a serious setback in the August 3rd, 2016. Local government elections and experienced a decline of about 8% of the national vote. Our discussions here will reflect on these elections for lessons to be drawn and solutions to be found. We lost control of some key metropolitan municipalities, including Johannesburg, Tshwane, and Nelson Mandela Bay. In Ekurhuleni, we managed to form a coalition to retain control of the council. Opposition parties formed coalitions to wrest control from our party. Part of the focus on renewal is aimed at enabling the ANC to regain that lost ground. The good news is that this week we managed to win Mogale City back at the ANC. Cheers. And those who were listening, when I was answering questions in Parliament, they will remember that I warned DA that we are going to return our hold in many municipalities. Since the announcement of the election results, members and supporters of the ANC have, out of pain and genuine concern, been engaged in varying degrees in robust discussions about what has gone wrong with their beloved movement and how we lost the metros. The National Executive Committee meeting in the immediate aftermath of the announcement of the results attributed our loss of support to perceptions in society that we are soft on corruption, we are self-serving, and that the ANC is arrogant. These are based on research findings we had undertaken before the elections, which proved to be correct. We also visit many parts of the country, and people tell us what the problems are.
They do complain about ANC leaders and deployees who fail to make time to talk to them and listen to their problems. This does not apply to all deployees or government officials, but one dismissive and arrogant ANC leader or official implementing ANC policy is one too many. The ANC has also referred to social restlessness, which manifests itself through the increasing number of community protest actions and what appears to be a growing tendency for these to turn violent. However, we do not condone violent protests, as people can make their voices heard in a peaceful manner, protected by the Constitution. Let me repeat this. However, we do not condone violent protests, as people can make their voices heard in a peaceful manner, protected by the Constitution. That means there is no need for protests to become violent. In fact, the view of the ANC is that damage to state property, in particular, must be categorized as a serious offense, punishable by a long-term sentence. However, we should take these protests seriously as part of the diagnosis of what has gone wrong. Why do people now communicate with us through protests? This conference must diagnose the real problems that led to the decline in electoral support and propose effective remedial actions. We must not be emotional in our discussions about what caused our electoral loss. We must be open-minded and use the facts before us, combined with our revolutionary theory as the framework for analysis and interpretation. Importantly, we must also be prepared to discuss the South African political economy as the overall context under which our electoral support has declined. In addition to the weak capacity of the state and internal organizational problems, the unfavorable global economic environment has put a strain on our own economic development and potential for job creation